I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I thank Link, the Learning Innovation Network from Commerce, for inviting me. And first thing I want to do is ask everyone here, and we can also answer on WebEx if you want to, how many of you consider yourself a leader? Okay, should see all the hands go up. Because as we'll talk about later on in the program, everyone that influences somebody is a leader. So what I want to do today is talk about why everyone is a leader and give you some ideas about leadership development and how we do it at USPTO. And I know I've already had some questions about how can I do leadership development, how can I fit that into my career, and I'll be giving you some of those tips and hints. And the book collection back there is beautiful back here. Thank you all for putting that up. That has a lot of great books. Honestly, though, if you go out there and go on Amazon and just type in leadership, like I did yesterday, you're going to find close to, I think, 500,000 books plus on leadership. So there's a lot written about it. And one of the reasons why is because leadership is so essential to our organizations. So what I'm going to do, and this is our journey today, we're going to talk about what is leadership development, how do you fit leadership development into your career, and then what we do, what kind of leadership development we do at PTO. Not saying it's the best, I think it's the best, but how it works, what kind of model we use, but there's all kinds of models around government. I'm talking to the National Weather Service about the Leadership Academy they have. One of the other leadership development programs I really like is at NASA. Have you all heard of the Quiet Leadership Program? It's for people that they found they had a need at NASA for people that were introverted, not as expressive as other folks, and they formed the Quiet Leadership because sometimes our most excellent leaders are the ones that are kind of quiet too. So leadership comes in all kinds of people and shapes and sizes, and it's just a very effective way to help lead our organization. So let's go ahead and start jumping into what is leadership development training. And before I get into that, I need to ask you what leadership is. So I like this quote from Dwight Eisenhower. So I'll let you read that real quick. But do you see how that works? You want people to do something you want because they want to do it. And we'll talk later about some of the leadership attributes and what I consider the 3 key attributes for leadership. So when we talk about leadership development, we have to know where we're going. Because in this journey of developing yourself as a leader, you want to know what a leader is. And when you read all 5,000 plus books, you'll find there's a lot of leadership theory out there. And you can group them into these families. And as you look at leadership development and leadership theory, you'll see that it's kind of an evolution here. We used to believe that people were born leaders, the great person. The idea that they had something special, something about this person that made them just a natural leader. Read a series of books on Napoleon, who's considered a great leader. And the author kept saying that Napoleon just had this way of spotting situations. He could see things other people couldn't see. He could see advantages and opportunities in his battles that no one else could see, and that's what made him a great leader. How many of y'all think that's true? That leaders can see things and do things that other people can't? Okay, some of you, all right. So you might be a great person, believer. Then there's people that think about traits, that leaders have certain traits. Again, maybe they're smarter, maybe they're quicker at social relationships, maybe they're able to do things that just have advantages that we don't have. This is the trait theories. And you start seeing that, okay, they may be born with these traits, but we can also maybe develop these traits for people. The idea of strategic thinking. At the University of Maryland, I teach project management communication. And one of the things I teach is strategic communication, the idea of thinking strategically. Just had a class last night, a little late, that's why I'm a little sleepy, teaching about cultural communication and thinking strategically about that. How do you deal with cultural differences? How do you communicate across cultures? What kind of strategies do you use in doing that? So some of those traits. Then you start moving into behavioral theories and situational leadership and contingency theory, where it started becoming not so much in the person, but more in the environment that the person was in. That people change their leadership styles based on what kind of organization they're working in, what needs to be done at the minute, okay? And also some of these things that are coming out like servant leadership. How many of you all heard servant leadership? Okay. That's what I'm trained in. I'm a project management professional. I'm certified in 3 different kinds of project management disciplines. And in my project management training, we spend a lot of time on servant leadership. And do you all know what servant leadership is? Some of you? Okay. Essentially, the idea is that it's kind of reversing the role here. Take a look at the name, servant leadership. It's the idea of the leader not really leading in front, but kind of serving behind, leading from behind, supporting the team, helping the team achieve things. So in my Agile project management training, I was taught to let the team take the lead on building the project, executing, budgeting, all that, and I help support them and help them work with their tasks. I help them with the vision, I help align, but then I get out of the way and let them do the work, and I support that. So it's kind of different from your traditional Napoleon great person traditional model, like Winston Churchill if you prefer. Then we have transactional leadership and transformational leadership. More about the organization, more about the relationships. The transactional leadership theories look at how do we interact with our followers, how do we interact with other stakeholders and other leaders. And transformational is all about the organization. How do we transform our organization into making it great? So when you take a look at all those different theories out there, you can see where, with the leadership development, you've got a lot of places to choose, kind of develop the leader you want to be. I also brought this other card here. I love this. It's from the Australian Leadership Foundation. And what I like about this best is how it talks about your team and your authority. And essentially the dichotomy here, not dichotomy, but just kind of the tension between that. How much authority do you have versus how much autonomy do you give to your team? And the idea of the different leadership styles. One of the leadership theories that talks about this is situational leadership. Anyone familiar with situational leadership? Okay. Yes, ma'am. So you kind of start off with, you direct your team, and as your team grows and matures and it's ready to take on more tasks, you kind of step back and you start delegating, and after a while you're back into the supporting leadership role. So your leadership style changes as your team evolves and grows. So with all that, what exactly is leadership development? So anyone here want to take a guess at this? And then, since I know the WebEx people will get their questions at the end, but I want to see if you have questions, please interrupt me when I'm here, up here. So anyone know what leadership development is? Nope. Yes, ma'am.
We spoke just a few minutes
earlier.
I think it has to do with the leadership continuum, the training continuum that you work towards the leadership, grow your leadership skills.
Exactly. That's what I like about that. When you say continuum, leadership is a journey. People still grow as leaders. I mean, people take on more and more leadership roles, but they're still learning all the time. Give you a personal example. I've been a leader in a lot of organizations, but I still like to do rotations, details, and some nonprofit volunteer work because I need to stretch. One of the things I did about 2 years ago is I ran for church treasurer in my church. And the reason why is because I kind of shied away from financial stuff. I just didn't want to deal with financial things. I just had this phobia against it, and I thought, if I'm going to grow as a leader, I need to get into the finances and learn it. So I became church treasurer. First year was rough because I was getting into learning how to balance a budget and deal with finances and deal with vendors, and it was a learning experience, and it was a stretch learning experience. It was painful. Second year, proudest accomplishment so far, our church needed $100,000 in repairs. Yeah, I know. Wow. And I was able to, at the latest meeting, convince our church to get a loan for $100,000, do these repairs. I've been working with vendors. So for me, that was really scared about doing finances 2 years ago. Now I'm handling a $100,000 loan and handling all the vendors and such. So I'm stretching as a leader. And that's helping translate back at work with my little budget in my training and development. But I now can feel more comfortable talking with our accountant, talking with folks, and dealing with vendors. So that's how you grow as that continuum. So that's a great example. Now, when you go out there, there is a lot of leadership development programs out there. And there's a lot of different ways to grow as a leader. And I'm going to give you what I think are some of the universals, in my opinion, and in the research I've done. And I really like this book here, The Work of Leaders, because it boils it down to 3, I think, core competencies. Being able to craft a vision, being able to align the organization and people around that vision, and then being able to help those folks execute. Remember, one of the biggest things about being leaders, and this is one of the biggest changes I had to make from going from operations to becoming a leader, was understanding that I don't do the job myself anymore. I work through other people. I'll do some stuff myself, of course, but I got to work through other people and help them use their efforts to achieve our vision. So you see here, it's like 18 parts here, and you can see all the different things that you can use to work with. So one of the things when I do is with my leadership development program, once we determine what the leadership model is think about, okay, we have these set of skills. Now, how do I build the classes and courses and details, role assignments, all these different things to help people arrange and get these skills? And another one I go to, another good book, Applied Leadership Development. And what I like about this gentleman's model is this is the J curve that he has. And see where you have what leaders do, and then how leaders lead, and the mastery of those. So those are skills that you set up, that you help people with. And I look at courses that we have, and I'll show you a little bit here with some of the courses. How can I help people develop those capabilities? But more importantly, how do I help them go out and try out those capabilities and work with those capabilities and grow those? Because I know with some of our courses, you sit in the class all day, you hear about leadership, it all sounds really good, and you think you've got it, right? And then you go out there and you actually try to apply that leadership skill, and it just falls apart on you. In learning theory, we call that the illusion of knowing. Okay? And how many of you have had that happen to you? You've gone to a class, it sounds really good to you, and you're ready to go out those, and then Monday morning you try those skills, it is a disaster, right? That's the thing with leadership. It is a journey, and one of the things I want to impress upon you, you're going to have failure. I've had a lot of failures. We could spend the next hour talking about my leadership failures. But you learn from those, and you learn how to work with that, okay? I don't think there's any leader that's gone out there that has been able to execute perfectly from day one. So, one thing I want to do is take a quick detour. Now, we know what a leader is, right? You have an idea? Okay. What's a manager? Anyone here managers? Okay. And what do managers do? Are they leaders? Should be. Okay. Do they have different functions, though? Do they do different things? Okay. Yeah. And this is a great article here by Cotter, What Leaders Really Do. And you should have a copy of this, October 2001 Harvard Business Review. And what I like about this chart, it really talks about the common things we want to do here. What are we setting out to do? How do we deliver results? How do we make it happen? What are the outcomes? And then you can see what leadership does and what managers do. Now, I don't want to start that fight about leaders are better than managers or managers are better than leaders. They both play an important role. And sometimes, like a project manager, I'm a leader. Sometimes I'm the project manager. I have to jump in, put the budget together, put our task list together, make sure things are on schedule, working well, and that we are doing what we need to do to execute that vision. So sometimes you have to shift back and forth. But when we look at our leadership training and then we look at our management training, you can see sometimes how we emphasize on different skills. And sometimes as a leader, I've seen some really good leaders, excellent leaders, that have a great second who's more their manager. I had a really great leader back in GSA when I was a presidential management fellow. This was back in the late 90s, so it's a long time ago. But the leader there was a great visionary. He was an excellent person. Really just liked him a lot. He had a great second in command who was a good manager. So whereas Frank was the great visionary and could do a lot of things and rally everybody, Bob was the guy that made sure things got done and helped support Frank. And it was a great partnership there. Kind of like we used to refer to him as Kirk and Spock. So kind of how that kind of works there, that dichotomy. So sometimes in leadership development programs, I take a look at our folks and I think, okay, they might need a little bit of managerial training too, just to help them also execute on those visions. So how does leadership development fit into my career? Let me ask this question. How many of you are currently doing leadership development? Okay. Are you taking courses? You reading books? How many of you all have done a detail? A few of you? Okay. Do you have you done anything in nonprofit or outside of work? Do you volunteer at your church, nonprofit association? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So you're taking on leadership roles there too. There's all kinds of places to take on leadership roles. Sometimes when people come to me and they want to do a detail, and it may be hard to schedule, I say, well, have you thought about maybe doing a nonprofit volunteer position? You can learn a lot there, and it does apply. And as I say, you put it on your resume, people most of the time don't care if it was paid or not. You know, I've actually gotten some folks interested because I'm doing the church treasurer. I'm not getting paid for it, but it's teaching me a lot of responsibility. So like I said, everyone is a leader because everyone influences somebody. And one program I'm working on right now with the Chief Financial Office over at PTO is helping them put together a leadership development program, because a lot of their people are sometimes put on temporary assignments, or they have to be leaders for about 6 months or maybe a couple of months or so because another leader's out of the office or whatever. So they're wanting, I think we're calling it just-in-time leadership skills. So that if you're here working in a staff position, all of a sudden I got to run a division here for a couple of months, okay, I can step in. I feel confident to step in. So we're putting that leadership program together. Now at PTO, we have this nice little pyramid. And I don't know if you can get to it on our intranet, but if you can, it's kind of a neat little graphic and it spins and all that fun stuff. But that's how we envision leadership at PTO. So you see at the bottom we have the individual leaders. Then we have aspiring leaders, new supervisors, mid-level leaders, and senior level leaders. And as I'll show later on, each of these positions has different skills and competencies that we train you so that as you go further up, you get closer and closer to that vision, alignment, and execution set of skills. So I do the individual leaders and aspiring leaders. And I'm really proud of the individual leader one because this is kind of epitomizing our philosophy here at USPTO about everyone is a leader. So even if you don't take a leadership position or formal one, or you're not a team leader, whatever, we still want to train you in different leadership skills. Because one of the things I found, and this is what I do with my project teams, I'll train my team members in project management, how to be a project manager, even if they don't want to be, just so they can understand my job. Some of you leaders out there, wouldn't it be great if people understood your job sometimes and what you have to go through and some of the pressures? Wouldn't that be helpful? So that's what I do there. We help people understand, well, what is it like to be a leader? What do leaders go through every day? And what skills can I use here? So as you can see, we have a set of skills. These come from OPM, Office Personnel Management. And what we do is we have courses, and I'm introducing some other things, some role-playing, simulations, other things to help people practice these skills. But you can see this is a lot of essentially kind of being a critical thinker, learning to lead yourself, being a good problem solver, being able to work on a team. The oral communication, oh my goodness, the communication is one of the most important things. If I had to say this, how many would you agree with this? That being a leader is being a good communicator. All right? And one of the things I include, and I tell the students this, is being a good communicator is also being a good listener. How many of you wish the leaders sometimes would listen more? Okay? That's what we were talking about last night on cultural communication. I said one of the best things to help you in cultural communication is learning to listen and really listen to the person and observe what they do. Because that's one of the things that helps get you out of trouble. Because, you know, I know when I've gotten in trouble before is because I just kind of went on and rambled and blindly didn't listen to the person and just got out what I wanted to say and shut down the communication. So I got to tell you, our communication course is probably the most popular. I have waiting lists that are amazing for us, and like the writing. Another thing I've been trying to train people to do is collaborate. I love how we hand people collaboration software. At PTO, we just got upgraded to Windows 10, and we got the whole new Office Suite 2016. And you know, they have SharePoint, that great collaboration tool. And how many of you all have, when we had the SharePoint, did you know exactly how to collaborate on that tool? Yeah. I learned this at Office Personnel Management. I was on the Open Government Detail. We handed out this collaboration software, and we thought, okay, you've got software, now you can collaborate. Yeah. Had to train people on how to collaborate. I think one of the most important skills, though, is continual learning. Learning how to learn. Learning your job. Because as a leader, you know, you're going to have to constantly learn. And the soft skills are pretty, you know, permanent. The learning how to communicate and all this. Technical skills, they have a half-life nowadays, don't they? They have an expiration date. And just being able to keep teaching yourself new things is always helpful. Now, the aspiring leaders are when we get people that are pre-supervisory. And as you can see with the skills, they're kind of moving more towards the organization, the execution and alignment. They're more about working through other people. And one of the big things I like about this is the idea of, again, collaboration and team building, but also teaching flexibility and teaching people how to be flexible and how to work with other people. And 2 classes that we run, which I think are really good, is preparing or making the decision to become a supervisor and then understanding the role of a supervisor. And I think these are really important classes because in the first one, we have them look at their values and we have them do a very in-depth assessment of themselves and understand what do they want to be, why do they want to be a supervisor? Why do they want to be a leader? Is it in their values right now? Can they be a leader right now? You know, some have family responsibilities, some have children. You know, there's things going on in their life. Can they commit to that job? And then with the understanding of the supervisor's role, we give them a lot of work on how do you understand other people, how do you work with other people, and emotional intelligence. We have emotional intelligence classes, which I think are very useful for leaders, so that they're self-aware of their own emotions and emotions of others. Because we know how people are, right? All right? We know sometimes it's difficult to work with people. Sometimes people have things about them. And it's being able to be aware of yourself and how you react to people, and also how people are reacting to you. And then, anyone recognize these? Anyone in here an SESer? Working on being an SESer? Okay. The executive core qualifications. Now that's where you get into the vision, alignment, and execution. Building coalitions and communication, leading change, leading people, business acumen, results driven. That's really about getting that vision, aligning everyone around that vision, and executing. And we just don't do that overnight. That's why we have this whole continuum of taking you from individual leader and teaching you some of the self-awareness skills, leading yourself, leading a team, leading a division, and leading the organization. Because again, it's a journey. You got to keep building yourself. I've seen sometimes when we've taken, political appointees and we put them in leadership roles, and sometimes they needed to go through that journey because they're given a lot of responsibility, and sometimes we need to catch them up and give them some more of those kind of leadership journey kind of in a hurry to get them to that point where they can get to this level. And I really like Bill George's book, Discover Your True North. And what I like about this, he went out and interviewed all kinds of leaders. And Oprah Winfrey, of course, popped up in this. But other great leaders out there, I think Sammy McChrystal, some other leaders in business and academia and all this. And essentially you tried to determine what was it that made them a leader? How did they grow? How did they become a leader? And I like the phases you go through. So preparing for leadership, character formation. And then rub it up against the world. In other words, are you ready? You're going to be hitting some spots here. And do you see that dotted line? That's the trajectory of leadership. That's kind of the ideal. We're just going to go straight up, right? But you notice the curved black line? That's how leadership development kind of goes. You take 2 steps forward, you go 1 step back, you take 2 steps forward, you go back, you learn from it. And at that part there about leader crucibles, sometimes you learn the most when you have the worst mistakes and you're able to rebuild and rebound from that. Use Oprah again. There was a lot of times when she was talking about how she had to rebound from success, from failures. I love the first one when she talked about that she was working in some station, she was fired. This is early in her career. And they said she'd never make it on network television. So, okay. But you can rebound and prove them wrong. And what I like about this is the idea of preparing for leadership, then leading, and then giving back. So one of the things we do at USPTO is we have a great mentor program. And one of the best things you can do as a leader when you become established and you've been a leader for a while is giving back, helping others become leaders. Because you'll learn more, too, about yourself as a leader. A lot of folks, have said when they've done the mentoring, they learned a lot more about themselves, probably more than the mentees did. So again, it's all about knowing yourself and leading yourself first. And this is what I look at in our program. Having the 180-degree assessment, have them think about themselves. We do a development plan, have your supervisor and yourself talk about where you're going, what you want to do. And then just develop these kind of soft skills, the emotional intelligence, empathy, decision-making. I spend a lot of time talking to folks about establishing trust and establishing a safe environment. One of the books, an excellent book, if you haven't read it, is Crucial Conversations. Anyone read that? Okay. Great book. I assign it in my project management class. I tell folks that this is a great way to learn how to speak to people, and the idea of creating a safe space for people to communicate with you. Because a leader should be someone that you can feel like you can talk to and work with, and that they've got your back. So I'm going to talk about what kind of leadership development courses we have. And again, I've had some questions before this. Do we offer it to all of the Department of Commerce? Unfortunately, no. We've got 1,200 plus people, or 12,000 plus, 12,000 plus employees at Commerce. So I got my hands full, and my team has got their hands full, putting these courses together. But we are certainly glad to talk to people and help you develop a leadership development program and share our expertise, and we'd love to hear from you. Like I said, I'm talking to the National Weather Service. They got a leadership academy. I can't wait to get some more information about how that works. So, and I know there's a lot of text on here, and I've broken one of those cardinal rules of PowerPoint, but I wanted to give you an idea of just the wide range of things I do in the classes we teach. And customer service, emotional intelligence, leadership communication, taking charge of your career. It's my courses are more about how to manage yourself, how to lead yourself, and then preparing you for leadership, developing those self-awareness skills, the communication skills, the emotional intelligence skills, understanding kind of how people tick. And again, I started adding things like small project management. This is kind of a neat little course for me because this is the first time we've actually offered it from our division. And the reason I do that is small projects are a great way to kind of test out your leadership skills. And we define small projects as something no more than 3 months, something in your office, maybe developing a website, developing a brochure. But it's a great way to kind of test your wings out as a leader and to kind of fly a little bit with this and lead a small project team. And hate to say it this way, if you don't get the brochure out, if you don't get the website up, it's not that much of a disaster, relatively. But it does give you some good things to work with and maybe bounce back from that failure. Yes, sir?
So you're facilitators for these courses, are those USPTO employees, or are you bringing vendors?
We bring in vendors for some of these. We also have some USPTO. So like I do one. Rosie is also an internal USPTO. We use right now Dale Carnegie and Get Control, and I'm looking at some more vendors. Center for Creative Leadership is a good place to go. And I'm looking, we had just one, I think Skillsoft, working more with them to get some of their courses. They've started offering things I like to call micro-learning, small, quick hits. One of the things you'll learn about employees nowadays, they're a little bit overwhelmed. So a 3-hour course is a little too much sometimes for them to take. So I'm trying to give them smaller courses. But yeah, it's a mix. And that's one reason why I did the church treasury thing, because I had to deal with vendors. And I had to get over learning how to work with vendors. So this helped me stretch there too. So I think I'm doing pretty good with it. But yeah, we do a real mix there, and I'm trying to expand on that some. Yes?
Classes online or on company time, or is it on your own time? Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am?
the question is, are employees allowed to take these courses on company time, or do they have to take it on their own time?
Okay. Great question there. So the patent examiners have 5 hours of leadership development training per year. If they take more than that, they have to do it in their own time. So they have 5 hours. That's why I'm trying to cut down some of these 3-hour courses. Some of these courses are online. They're either led by an instructor, so they're virtual live, or they're webinars. We also have in-person courses in the facility, so they can come to a 3-hour course that's live. I've actually started cutting down my small project management courses to 2 hours. I'm trying to get it down to 1 hour and still have the same content without overwhelming folks. And we're looking at also some alternatives, self-paced learning and mobile app learning. We got some new ones we want to roll out. So we're trying to work around that the 5 hours a year is a real barrier for us sometimes. But we want to economize our times because with training, as we're learning in the training world, people are very overwhelmed. And they like training they can choose for themselves and on their own time, and then like quick hits. So we're going to try to roll out a mobile app and see how that works. But yeah, that's a great question here. So traditionally, right now, we do live, online, 3 hours to 1 hour. But I'm trying to break that mold. That answer your question? Perfect. Okay. So this is our new supervisors. This is a colleague of mine, Shalimar, and she runs this. And this is actually a curriculum set by Office of Personnel Management. We have certain goals we have to reach. And this is where we take supervisors through, let's see, I think she said it was like a 6-week course. We have several hours. I think there's all-day courses they take. And really get them into what it means to be a supervisor. And they have a certificate at the end of it, and they do a capstone project, which I think is really nice. And you can see here, they're really learning how now to work through other people, to set the vision, to align people, and learn how to execute. So they're getting those skills there. Our mid-level leaders, again, I just want to show this real quick. These are the folks that are above supervisors, but they're not senior level yet. Notice how their skills and competencies have changed. So more analytical skills, conflict management, that's a popular course. Managing the remote workforce. As you know, most of PTO's workforce is distributed. They work at home, telework. So we have to learn how to deal with a distributed workforce. And the idea of leading change now in systems thinking. Then our senior leaders, that's the vision, execution, alignment. So that's the kind of competencies and skills we teach there. So kind of ended a little bit early here, but that's fine. I want to have some room for questions, and I'm certain the WebEx audience has some. And just want to tell you that leadership is a journey, okay? You never stop being a leader. I mean, no matter how high you get up in the leadership skills, there's always still more to learn and still more to take on. So that's why I'm kind of giving that plea to you that some of you folks that are senior leaders, that have been accomplished leaders, think about mentoring. Think about giving back. So I want to thank you, and I am open for questions now. This is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me. I'll be glad to talk to you more about this and leadership development. And if I can just do a shameless plug here, not only am I a government worker, I'm also an academic. That's why I have the doctor. And I am working on leadership development, kind of a new theory based on Josh Berson's idea of the simply irresistible organization, organizational agility, organizational health. We know our organizations are changing. We know there's the challenge of getting millennials, and now Generation Z. How many of you all have heard of Generation Z? Generation Z just voted for the first time last year. So these are the new and upcoming cadre. So we're looking at how do we get more people coming into government, the younger folks coming into government, and what kind of leadership are they looking for? So I'm doing research on that, and I'm hoping to present some of that next year at some conferences. So I'd love to talk to you folks about that. And with that, I'm open for questions.
All right, great. Anyone?
Hi. Thank you, Dr. Brantley, or Bill. Can I say Bill?
Bill is fine.
Hi. So this is great. I'm from ITA within Commerce. So I'm just curious what courses other agencies can take under the Enterprise Training Division. I'm familiar with the APEX training, and an administrative staff member under one of my people I supervise has been taking the course, completing the course, and it's been a wonderful course, according to her. So I'm just curious in general.
Yeah, I think we make some of the senior level and mid-level courses open to other folks that are, sister agencies. So my team lead on that is Bert Gravelese, and he could probably help you with that. Now we have, of course, we all work closely with other folks, and we have shared our vendors. So if they see a course on here that you like that Dale Carnegie offers, we can certainly put you in touch with them and let you share that. And with some of our courses, when Rosie and I facilitate, I've had a couple people slip into my small project management that weren't technically USPTO employees, but it's fine. We had room, and I'm glad to teach anybody anything. That's why I'm a teacher. So yes, we can talk to you about that and share some of the ideas. And one interesting thing about USPTO, we are an enterprise training division. The CIO has their own training division. Patents has their patent training academy. Trademarks has their trademarks training academy. And up to 7 months ago, I used to run the Global Intellectual Property Academy, which was out of the Office of Policy and International Affairs. Now, that was a fun place. I was teaching foreign government officials how to run patent offices, and it was a great job, although I have to admit, being a one-man band, I kind of like having some staff members to rely on now, because when you run your own training function by yourself, you are chief cook, bottle washer, and all that, and my days are filled. But I did a lot of leadership development training for foreign government officials, and that was fascinating. That's why I was really getting into the intercultural communication and the idea of cultural cultural models of leadership around the world, how different cultures treat leadership. It was fascinating.
Great. Anyone else in the room?
Dr. Brantley, this is Lisa Lawler-Coven from Economic Development Administration.
Mm-hmm.
How does coaching and the coach approach fit into your leadership development program?
Well, that's a great question. I like that. So we have mentoring and we have the coaching. So we all know what the difference between mentoring and coaching is, right? Okay. Whoops. Keep hitting that thing. So the idea with mentoring is, sharing your experience, helping people understand your experience as a leader. Coaching is looking for the strengths in the person and also helping correct some of their weaknesses. So it's more of like an athlete. We look at what they can do well, and the coach can help develop you and give you a development plan. So coaching is a great addition to leadership development because when we do the assessments, we take you through the courses, and we take people on kind of guided practice with the coaching. So how would they handle this emotionally intelligent situation? How would they handle an upset team member? And we would coach them through that. And I'm actually looking at something, and I got to admit, the training industry has a lot of buzzwords, and there's one called micro-coaching. I'm looking at that, seeing if that could work. That's kind of like just-in-time coaching. So I agree with you that coaching is a very important part, and I think people should have leadership coaches. I had a senior coach myself when I was at USDA, which was great to have, and I think I was richer for the experience. But again, with some of our leaders and such, they need sometimes a little just-in-time coaching to help them understand and how to work through, that kind of situation.
Okay, great.
Oh,
We'll do one WebEx and then you'll be next. Someone from WebEx asks, with good reason, there is great interest in being a leader, but leaders cannot be leaders without having followers. So can you talk about how we can take pride in being a follower? And is it fair to encourage everyone to be a leader when an organization can't function with all leaders and no followers?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. And there's a wonderful book on that called Good Followership. And I totally agree with you. We can't have everyone being leaders in an organization, not entire leadership organization leaders. But think about it this way: even if you're a follower, wouldn't it be good to have some of those leadership skills, the communication skills, being able to be emotionally intelligent about yourself, emotionally intelligent about the team members, being able to be aware of how to collaborate with each other and such. So some of those leadership skills we talk about are also great for followers. And you're absolutely right. And I've had project teams before where some people do not want to be a project manager. They like being a project team member. That's what they're doing. I did a lot of IT project management, and some of my developers didn't want to lead anything. They like developing. I kind of like developing myself. I find it very meditative. But they didn't want to be a leader. But sometimes, if I'm out sick, they had to jump in. But it was great to know that when they can do that for me, but when they wanted to, they can step back and work on what they want to do operationally. So, not everyone wants to be a leader, and that's fine. And it's great to have those great followers. Again, like I talked about my boss, the Kirk and Spock thing, sometimes we need a good Spock.
Great.
I guess my question is completely related to that. I am kind of shocked by the fact that you seek leadership, meaning that my understanding is that you are declared a leader. So it's not your, you're not making this up. Somebody is going to say, yeah, you can follow this person because this person has something to share. So then listening is totally key. Understanding the differences between dispositions, which I would associate with characters or traits or things like that, and then circumstances. And then I am from ITA, and so there's a certain culture in ITA, which to me has difficulty to understand leadership, especially leadership, when you are declared a leader, but you do not declare yourself a leader. So I'm still, how do I find in my job, on my team, And I like the question about followers versus leaders, because those followers to me are the dots, and the leader is the person who help map those dots. And I guess I still have to work on that. How do you, if you have an intention or if you are interested in context, how do you help the mapping on the dots?
All right, great question. Again, I mean, it's interesting sometimes when we talk about leadership that people say, well, I want to be the one that's kind of doing this stuff. So I can see where you're going with that. And there's other models. You might not be a formal leader, but maybe you're a peer leader. And sometimes your peers look to you for leadership on certain things. You might be an expert in a field, and they look to you to help them with that. So that's how sometimes you can connect the dots and work with that. And then in some other teams, I've seen kind of self-organizing teams, people share leadership responsibilities. They kind of rotate around. So again, I'm not saying everyone has to be the leader and have to jump out front. Sometimes it's good to be a follower, but realize there's moments, and this is when some of the theories of situational leadership, where there's a leadership moment and someone needs to step in and take charge for just that time and do that. And so if I understand your question correctly, it's like, everyone pushes me to be a leader. I really don't want to be a leader, per se like that in the traditional way, but there may be some moments when we need you to step in and kind of help lead for a little bit, to help us connect that one dot to another dot and work with that. Does that answer your question? Sorta? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Cynthia Cole with ITA. So my question kind of piggybacks on what you're just asking. Do leaders have to supervise, in your opinion? And on another vein, would you define a manager as a follower?
Okay, so you got two questions there. So do leaders have to supervise? We have some leaders that are team leaders. They're not really supervisors, but they kind of have the informal role. So you don't always have to be a supervisor. And sometimes with folks that are leaders, they don't really want to be a supervisor, because sometimes the supervisor role is a lot more managerial than what they want to go for. So I can see that. And then your second question again, if you could remind me. Yeah. Well, some managers can be followers. I mean, they're doing the managerial duties, as we had that chart up there, and they're executing on. So, I mean, honestly, as church treasurer, I feel more like a follower. I'm following the dictates of the council. I'm following the dictates of the pastor and the congregation. I'm using my expert authority, and I'm helping them do things, but I'm just saying, look, we need the church fixed. Here's what it's going to cost us. Here's who we can get to do it. What do you guys want to do? I'm following. I'm taking direction. And, so I may be leading in some aspects, but I'm also following. Yeah. Does that help? Mm-hmm.
Great. Anyone else in the room?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brantley. This was very informative and helpful.